Edition of Morning Cafe. You're watching TV47. My name is Fred Indimuli, and someone was trying to do a countdown to Christmas. It's only 260 days to Christmas. But you know what? There's another holiday coming this week. This week. Tutakonfirmia itakuwa siku gani? Don't you worry.
Oh yes, but it has to be before Friday. Or I think like we should really petition this holiday to be on Friday. So that we
when
just
another
extend
three-day weekend.
Oh yes.
Mnasukuma sana.
Oh yes, I'm used to Stanley Nyeringita, karibu sana. It's a Tuesday, Matters Biashara Tuesday, and this day we focus on the small and medium enterprises. Let's talk about Boda Boda, Mama Mboga, and today we'll be having them here to just tell us how Biznaiko, Malenje, how they are, how they're really coping with life.
And taxation.
Oh yes.
Interesting.
Oh yes. So in case you're also a part of that bracket, small and medium enterprise, you can tell us, how do you cope with biashara in different parts of this country? Talk to us on our socials. 22047 is our SMS number. You can always call in live 0795 045 864. But before that, tuangalie the headlines on what to expect later on as you get into the newspaper highlights.
All right, yes, and the Standard leads with tough questions as Linturi claims fertilizer is good, and he was appearing before MPs yesterday as the probe continues into the fake fertilizer scandal.
On the Daily Nation, party politics, Musalia to fold ANC in grand UDA plan.
Oh yes. In Business Daily, why Kenyans do not earn interest on M-Pesa balances. Interesting story. Yes, kuna acha pesa pale lakini hakuna kitu inaingia. That's a Business Daily.
Kwenye gazeti la Taifa Leo, masuala ya vyama, Mudavadi amezwa na UDA.
And you know, interestingly, I Googled, I searched, you know, you find yourself assigned a political party, and I searched and I found my name on the list of ANC members. I've never registered for any political party, but I found myself on the list of ANC members, and now this party is being swallowed.
So, what next for you?
What next? Tutaenda wapi? On the People Daily, who is telling the truth matters fertilizer scandal. Probe, top leaders speak from both sides of the mouth of a fake fertilizer as heads start to roll.
On to the next paper, the Star, riddle of billions idling in counties' bank accounts. I love the fact that the Star, for a period of time now, has really been focusing on counties since last week, and just taking a look at the devolution and the teething problems, the feuds between the governors and deputies, as well as now.
Watu nawaelewa vile wana survive, ndio maana wako na mambo yao. Well, yes, across the border in Uganda, strike deals heavy blow to businesses. Now, these shoppers across the country and neighboring states remained stranded on day one of a strike that choked tax collection, brought police and army on streets to cut off livelihoods for hundreds of menial laborers. And yes, there's a strike, a general strike in Kampala. And what will it do to businesses there? Oh
yes, and still on the same deadlock as URA, now that's the equivalent of KRAs in Uganda. And they say URA traders clash on taxes. Imagine if we saw something like this.
In Kenya, people are complaining online, but they're doing nothing. In Uganda, they're actually going out to the streets.
Tunafunga duka.
Tunafunga, tukaya hapa chini. Mutafanya. Kuja uchukue pesa sasa. Well, in Tanzania, uchaguzi waingiza vigogo hawa vitani, masuala ya vyama vya upinzani.
And we show it on the Citizen, has to do with matters, construction of bridges and anti-flooding projects set to take off in Dar. They say the demolition of 2,155 houses and other structures in the Msimbazi Valley in Dar es Salaam is scheduled to begin this week ahead of the implementation of the Msimbazi River Development Project.
Yes, matters infrastructure still making headlines in Tanzania, according to the Citizen paper.
This is going to be huge for them, because even when you read at the bottom there's a huge number of people who've died following the floods.
There was serious flooding earlier this year, especially with El Nino rains.
Yes.
In Tanzania, I think they're really key on infrastructure, which is a good thing to read that they're progressing well. Oh yes, so those are the headlines regionally within East Africa. This is what people are talking about in the three East African states. And back home, take a look at traffic.
Oh yes. Let me see if I comprehend the roads as well as you do. Yes, so coming from Kitengela of the river, this is Mombasa Road. Coming to town, the roads are looking nice. There's some red spots just before you actually hit Cabanas, and well, this probably some bus stops. Nothing much to report on as you after the Gateway Mall getting into Nairobi looks quite clear. Let's see another road. This should be Thika Road, getting into town as well. And let me just zoom in into Juja Road, because that's always one road that is always quite tricky. It looks nice, but then just before you, there's a red spot here. Yes, Juja Road, traffic might be building up right about now. Remember that it has been raining overnight, so the roads are slippery, and chances of it, and even the whole weather, how it looks like, it's foggy, so chances of the whole traffic building up right now is higher. Let me zoom out and just see how even Thika Road is building up just before you hit Muthaiga, coming all the way from Kasarani. And actually, so this is Allsops. Things are looking nice after Outer Ring, getting into Thika Road. You might expect some traffic snarl up before you hit right, imepotea kidogo. Yes, there you have it. Before you hit Muthaiga, and just going all the way, looks amazing. Getting from Kiambu all the way using Limuru Road as well, and this Kiambu Road as well, looking fantastic. A final one. Which road is this? Getting into, let me see. Before you hit the Safaricom headquarters.
Town, yes.
Yes. Well, majorly all roads are looking fantastic. Lanthas Road, some of the subsidiaries getting into the Central Business District, a few red patches, but nothing much to worry about. So just the bus stops there, so nothing much to really report on the same. Let's take a look at the weather, and I'll go with what the Kenya Met Department says. So this is as of yesterday. So rainfall, according to them, rainfall to continue across the country, with heavy rainfall anticipated in the Central Highlands, Western Kenya, Rift Valley, Southeastern Lowlands, the coast, as well as Northeastern and Northwestern Kenya. Interestingly, we've seen some roads that have been rendered quite quite impassable, and even the Kenha had to block some of these roads, and there was a huge traffic snarl up on some of these roads. In Nairobi specifically, let's see how the weather might be looking like as of now, and they say 17 degrees Celsius, so iko moderate, but they say leo again rainfall might also be continuing, and precipitation as high as 70 getting into the evening. So chances of it actually raining into the midday might be high. Precipitation of 70%, 23 degrees Celsius pale, ini sasa zile thunderstorms, and then getting into the day. From the midday, it relaxes, and then expect more rainfall as of the night progresses, and that is how that looks like. To some, what to expect on our diary. So the whole meeting by the Agriculture Committee is definitely going to be expected today. So the Departmental Committee, that is the National Assembly's Departmental Committee on Agriculture, will be meeting with the SPL Innovate Manufacturers Limited. Yesterday they met with the Agriculture CS Mithika Linturi, and well, I will be taking a look at what he said, but then now key on what SPL Innovate Manufacturers Limited has to say matters the fertilizer subsidy program and the involvement in all that as well. Still in Bunge, we do expect a Committee on Matters Governance and Education to be meeting with the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury and Economic Planning, that is Professor Njuguna Ndungu, to just know what might be said. Key on this, even having Professor Njuguna Ndungu and the whole Committee on Matters Education, we do expect the whole bit of capitation and just the funds to schools and how this progress, why it has been lagging all this time, for him to just explain to us. Still in Bunge, so the Public Participations Committee will be meeting today, and the matters of management of TikTok will be brought up before this committee today. So meeting with the management of TikTok from South Africa and the consideration of a petition to ban the social media platform in Kenya. So this will be at around noon, and we'll be telling you what will be transpiring in this meeting and what will actually happen later on. So this is again a very interesting bit of if they're actually going to say, should we actually ban? They've just started the whole and making sure, can we actually ban this social media app or not? And the final one matters defense now. The National Assembly Committee on Defense will be meeting today on the whole approval of the ambassadorial nominees. So 5 of them as of today: Aden Mohammed of Jeddah, Kenneth Milimo of Abu Dhabi, nominee of Abu Dhabi, Vincent Mogaka, nominee of Accra, Ghana, Abdi Aden Korio of Muscat in Oman, and finally Gertrude Angote UNEP, Nairobi. And that is the news diary for you this morning. Tuingie kwenye magazeti.
All right, time for us to take a look at the dailies. All right, let's start off with the standard tough questions as Linturi claims fertilizer is good. This is a different take the Agriculture CS Mithika Linturi has for the 18th time said there is no fake fertilizer in the country. However, he admits that just 3,000 bags were found unsuitable for use. However, farmers tell a different story. This story is extensively covered on pages 4 and 5. Not really 4 and 5, actually 6 and 7. Of the Standard. Government ping pong on fake fertilizer as MPs probe fake fertilizer dealers to be charged, Ruto warns. And this is the irony that the Agriculture CS appears before MPs and says there's no fake fertilizer. Then the president comes out and says those dealing in fake fertilizer will be charged. So who exactly is saying what, where, when? And sell subsidized fertilizer inputs throughout the year, says Senator. Those are just some of the headlines linked to that ongoing probe into the fake fertilizer scandal. Other highlights on the front page of the Standard: school layoffs loom in secondary changes. A major overhaul is on the horizon for the over 10,000 secondary schools in the country. The changes could lead to significant staff layoffs and funding cuts as the government implements CBC. And remember, this is a discussion we've been having. What exactly is this that we are changing to after CBC, with the first cohort only 18 months away from joining high school? And so, yes, they're saying that this could actually mean some serious changes to the structure of the high schools as we know it, and it could end up with some massive layoffs as well. On the Financial Standard, why gas will be Ruto next East Africa battlefront. The government is set to block the importation of cooking gas through its borders with Tanzania as it seeks greater oversight in the petroleum sector in a bid to stem illegal refueling. That story is on page 19. Up there on the front page of the Standard, the top strip star DJ Mfalme turns witness in murder case. Yesterday, he was let off the hook alongside 5 others as the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions decided to charge only one of the suspects, and his name is Alan Ochieng, for the murder of that DCI officer. On the international front, no truce deal between Israel and Gaza. That story is on page 27, the ongoing crisis in the Middle East. In business, World Bank warns of poverty, inequality, and in sports, Mwamba girls bask in Kenya Cup glory. So let's flip the paper to the back page. And yes, the back page is about the UEFA Champions League. Big matches happening tonight Arsenal will be hosting Bayern Munich at 10 p.m. Meanwhile, Real Madrid will be playing host to Manchester City. These are big games by any standards.
And years of pain.
Ghana's looking to transfer the momentum from the Premier League title charge onto the European stage. Good energy fuels Arsenal's double bid as they face Bayern Munich. Meanwhile, Manchester City's Mr. Reliable Rodri stands in Real Madrid's way. And yes, Arsenal will be seeking to end years of pain against Bayern. I like the people who craft these headlines about sports. But anyway, we shall have to wait and see. Tutakuwa hapa kesho asubuhi. Tuseme tu hivyo.
We shall be here no matter what. Oh, yes.
And dust has to be seen.
And the clouds will gather and it will pour.
It will pour. That's the standard this morning.
Na mtacharazwa and I'll
afadhali sisi. Nyinyi hamna lenu.
Musalia to fold the unseen grand UDA plan is a big story in Daily Nation. It focuses on the party politics and the push to fold the parties to just have a conglomeration of UDA. And this is the president looking to the east and ensuring that the UDA resembles the Communist Party in China. Will he succeed? We're still yet to see if this plan's actually going to make him succeed. The UDA party is actually to have a benchmark in China.
Oh yes, even the Jubilee Party, that's when they started, because it's always been the desire of William Ruto as a politician to have one big juggernaut of a party. And I think he's still pursuing that.
Oh yes, but the now Daily Nation reports that this whole fold might really have and cause just stir some chaos in this party. They say DP Rigathi wants only one deputy party leader in UDA. President Ruto's wish to have Kenya Kwanza parties fall into one political juggernaut under the 2027 polls appears to be gaining traction, with Mudavadi's Amani National Congress showing keen interest, but move is likely to ruffle feathers in DP Gachagwa's corner, even as Ford Kenya's Wetangula plays hard to get. It's on pages 4 and 5 of the same. On the bottom, another day, another photo of doctors striking. So this is the clinicians in Nairobi yesterday. And I do expect as well as the KMPD will actually be holding a demonstration around Parliament, just outside the Parliament, buildings around the roads near there. So that again may also cause some slight traffic snarl up and some running battles between the police as well as them, even after the president told them, hatuna pesa.
Live within your means.
Live within your means, yes. On the right scroll of this paper, we're watching the sunset is worth every penny. Listen to this. So on page 3, they say foreign tourists pay 6,500 Kenya shillings, locals between 1,000 Kenya shillings and 3,000 to watch magical moment on Congo River. Hey.
That's a sunset.
Yes.
Okay.
You pay to watch it. That's as if ama nianzishe biashara just you pay to just being rained on somewhere.
Exactly. Unakaa tu hivyo unaangalia mvua ina.
Yes.
Asemanga aisifuye mvua.
Imemnyea. Yes.
Unakuja unanyesha.
Actually that should be the title of the yes.
Aisifuye mvua.
Imemnyea.
Okay.
And then you pay about 5,000 bob to
ukiendelea kufikiria hivyo, by the way, I'm worried about your future.
According to a tourist, there's a quote there. When I was told that this was the best place to watch the sunset in the world, I became curious. Only to learn that I had to pay some money. I love watching the allure of nature, so I paid the money. Would you pay?
Oh, yes. Some of these experiences are once in a lifetime. And it leaves you with some memory that lasts for a lifetime as well. Good. You know, experiences sio tu kutembea hapa na kukimbiza dust.
Right.
Shall be seen either way.
Most definitely. Two highlights on the front page. matters roads, traffic nightmares, travelers are stranded for over 24 hours. This is what I was talking about earlier. A move by the Kenya National Highways Authority to close a section of the Nairobi-Mombasa highway for repairs led to a traffic snarl-up that lasted from Sunday till Monday. And on the back page, which you can now comfortably...
No, there's a highlight I don't want you to pass because this is big. The performances light up Schools Drama Festival. The story is on page 2, and it talks about the ongoing National Schools and Colleges Drama Festival happening in Embu County.
Takes me back.
I'm a product of this festival, so it's very close to my heart.
I also went through, all this. And just, getting into the whole rostrums. And I remember... Some time back in Form 4, I was acting as...
Some time back, it was last year.
All right, I'll let that slip. So I was acting as a very tough deputy principal, and I think I've even forgotten my lines, but...
May I remember my lines from back in the 90s?
Say them. I dare you.
Let me not. But I didn't want you to pass that highlight. Okay, fine, now you can go to the back page.
Oh, yes. But then it really has to actually, it's connected, matters the whole drama and matters even CBC. So the fact that we're even having a new CBC system, how will drama festivals be done differently? But anyway, to the back page, they say new school textbooks on the way in first CBC review. And publishers have submitted manuscripts for books that will be used from 2025, the first month, that is January. And there's a quote there by the PWPER report that one textbook per learning area or subject was based on the cheapest rather than the best in content quality. And they definitely have to take a look at matters sports. That is on the top scroll of that paper. Real Madrid on high alert as champions Manchester City. Champions Manchester City.
Yes.
I just have to.
Manchester City.
Yes,
I cannot take. You don't have any bragging rights when it comes to the other side of
I wasn't going to brag. I just wanted to make it clear that Arsenal.
This is the Champions League. It's okay. Anything. Can
overall,
change.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Come calling in first leg of quarterfinals tonight. Arsenal welcome Bayern Munich. And a final one matters still on the back page. Senators threaten to starve governors of cash for snubbing summons. And matters terror. US issues alert on terror attacks. That is the Daily Nation. To Business Daily?
Yes, let's take a look at some business. On the Business Daily, why Kenyans do not earn interest on M-Pesa balances. Customers in other countries apparently earn interest on balances. Only Kenya has a low blocking interest earning, which is worrying. Millions of M-Pesa and other mobile money service users in Kenya could be earning interest on their deposits were it not for a 2014 law that blocked it, making Kenyans the only ones missing out on this stream of income in Africa. Now, these are things Kenyans should know. In other African countries, including Uganda and Tanzania, mobile money customers earn interest on their balances, similar to saving in a bank. Now, this is according to a new report by the International Monetary Fund. And this is something that, yes, Kenyans should know. I think this is one of the most consequential headlines I've seen in terms of business. Should ask your member of parliament, why are we being blocked from earning interest, if at all we're using these mobile money services? The other highlight, Kenya races to start tracking gas cylinders from June. They say that they will roll out a new system to automatically track cooking gas cylinders in the latest effort to combat a thriving black market in the multi-billion shilling sector. More highlights on the front page of the Business Daily. On the ticker, US wants public say on Kenya tax trade rules. The US is demanding that Kenya grant traders and the public bigger say in regulatory changes to safeguard their rights, including accommodating their views and granting them sufficient time to comply. No, that's a very dicey route to take. Kenyans are just taking it in. You impose a new tax, a new levy, tunasema sawa na tuna move on. Now the US saying no, wanafaa tusikize. Elsewhere, regulator bars UK betting firm W88 for lack of license. Elsewhere, CBK says rebounded imports on shilling. And finally, Rubis gains market share as rivals lose. Those are the business highlights today, according to the Business Daily.
From Business Daily to People Daily. Let me take a look at a couple of 4 or 5 stories on this front page. And the big question is, who is telling the truth? The whole scandal. Top leaders speak from both sides of their mouth. Over fake fertilizers, heads start rolling. And pictured there, President William Ruto, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, Agriculture CS Mithika Lituri, and Matters Public Service CS Moses Kuria. More is on pages 4 and 5, and they say, speaking in tongues. Let me take you to the front, to the top scroll. Ruto's plan to deploy military in West Pokot asks Raila. He was in West Pokot yesterday, where he made all that statement. At the very top, I feel like Matters Arsenal. We've talked about it too much. We can just skip.
You can just say it. Arsenal host Bayern in Champions League clash.
At the very top, state warns of illicit trade in petrol. Security chiefs come up with strategies to protect critical national assets from terrorists and cyber attacks. And finally, when banking on likely potential husband, maneno ya husband material, pale. Yes.
All right. Tuangazie gazeti la Taifa Leo. Mudavadi amezwa na UDA. Habari kuu pale kwenye ukurasa wa mbele. Anataka wafuasi wa chama chake cha ANC, nilikwambia nilijipata kwenye list ya chama hichi, kuendelea kufanya kazi kwa karibu zaidi na UDA, akijiandaa kutangaza tsunami nyingine itakayobadilisha siasa za Kenya. Hatua hii itamweka katika ubavu wa Ruto. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa pili. Wanasema zaidi, wachanganuzi wa siasa wasema Mudavadi anaotea wadhifa wa kuwa naibu wa kinara wa UDA. Ukiangalia kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Daily Nation, wanasema naibu wa rais hapendelei masuala kama haya. Kuwa na naibu wa kinara wa chama watatu. Tangoja
kwa hivyo kutakuwa na mguruzano
ambayo gavana wa Trans Nzoia George Natembeya uzungumzia, akisema tawe. Alikuwa hapa kwenye TV47 jana usiku
kizungumza na Andrin Kilemi.
Yes, akiwa na Andrin Kilemi.
And actually, so one of the people that we spoke to said that tawe apparently means together, together always, together always we experience, something like that.
Tawe means no.
He had his own
interpretation.
Yes, in an acronym of it.
Tawe. No, tumekataa hiyo maneno. But I like your interpretation. Together what?
He had his own acronym of it, and he said, if I can clearly recall, something about together always we experience, something like that.
Okay, interesting. But from where I come from, I just know Tawe is just saying no.
Tawe. Okay.
Okay. On the bottom, pale chini kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo, walevi wageuza makaburi na vyoo maskani ya kukata kiu. Lakini pale lazima ukue umelewa kiasi ili uweze keti pale makaburini.
Unaongea na
hivi imepita kiasi. Walevi wageuza makaburi na vyoo maskani ya kukata kiu. Ikifika hapo wacha. Wengineko Kwale, jua likizama unalipia. Ile ulikuwa unazungumzia. Biashara mpya sasa, watalii wakitozwa 6,500 kushuhudia jua likizama kila jioni. Mimi hapa kwetu hapa tunaangalia. Pitia kwa dirisha tu unaona jua likitua.
Because I'm curious, what other benefits do you get?
Probably the cynic and the environment.
What else?
Probably a combination of things. It must be a combination of things. They wouldn't be paying for nothing. Wengine wanasema hata eclipse hawakulipia, lakini ina hakika hawakuiona hiyo eclipse pia. Habari zaidi
which makes sense. I mean, I was actually watching, just following it live yesterday. Began from Mexico all the way to the southern bits of America, and finally to the eastern Canada, and exited as Atlantic. And just seeing, I mean, there's a whole cloud, people just sitting there.
Think about it this way. People come to Africa just to get a feel of the sun. Yes. Because probably, especially from Northern Europe, they rarely get to see the sun. They see some light, but not the sun.
So this will be attracting foreign tourists and not domestic tourists.
Not really Kenyans. I doubt any Kenyan would go to pay to Diani to see the sunset. You can see it from here.
Well, unless you're quite extravagant and you say, you know what, tonight I'm using my 6,500.
Pesa ni pesa.
Oh, yes.
Vidokezo zaidi kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo. Lamu si Kenya, huku mgomo hawautambui. Sehemu mbalimbali za Kenya, za nchi zikipitia makali ya mgomo wa madaktari. Lamu matibabu ni kama kawaida. Lamu si Kenya. Kwingineko, wakuzaji wa miwa wakataa hitaji la e-TIMS. Nakumbuka wale wa avocado walisema tawe. Sasa wengine wa miwa wakina Inonda wamesema tawe pia. Wanasiasa waongoza wakulima kupinga hitaji hilo la serikali, wakitaka mswada wa fedha wa mwaka jana ufanyiwe mabadiliko. Pale juu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo, mgomo wa chacha, wagonjwa wa kifa, hospitali za salia mahame, wagonjwa wakiteseka. Na katika masuala ya spoti, UEFA sasa leteni hao majeruhi Bayern. Arsenal roho juu inapoalika miamba Ujerumani, wanasema hao majeruhi waleteni hapa tuwaonyeshe vumbi iko nini. Na hilo ndio gazeti la Taifa Leo.
And you can clearly tell whoever wrote some of these headlines on the specific, you can tell who they support.
Jamaa Arsenal huyo.
Huyo ni Arsenal huyo. Naweza jua for the Standard huyo ni labda ni Omani huyo.
Okay.
On the Star, I think that's our last paper as we take a look at the caricatures. Riddle of billions idling in counties' bank accounts, and they say there's lots of stalled projects and complaints of underfunding, quote-unquote, paralysis. So they're calling this an accounting mess, and most have accumulated massive pending bills. On the bottom, the photo, NTSA Director General George there. Tough new rules for school buses to curb road carnage. 3 more highlights on the left. Matters health technology, how it changed Elisha Sharma's life, who's been suffering from epilepsy since the age of 4. And the NADCO report, and they ask who's fooling who in the Ruto-Raila NADCO report. The handling of the National Dialogue Committee report, after approval by both houses of Parliament, has exposed mistrust, contradictions and doublespeak. That tonight, President Ruto and opposition leader Raila Odinga, what was initially a unity pact bringing together Kenya Kwanza and Azimio la Umoja, is slowly developing cracks. And in case you've been crying because of onions, well, you're about to actually be crying more. High onion prices put tears in eyes of strained customers, and the consumers in Nairobi have been forced to dig deeper into their pockets, which actually, I mean, yeah, you're probably buying, let's say if it's a kilo, ungenunua, probably if it's 100 bob, and they're about, let's say, about 8 or 7 of onions in that kilo as they pack it. Right now, imepungua, or even the amount of it has just increased. Some sad state of affairs there. And that is the Star. And can take a look at the cartoons this morning. Okay, let's start off with the Daily Nation today. The cartoon on Daily Nation is on page 17. It talks about matters doctors strike, and you have the doctors there, and a figure of someone in the yellow and green of the UDA party, which is a ruling party, which represents the government, hiding the CBA, which is full of cash behind the back, a box branded CBA full of cash, and the government offer given to the striking doctors there only has 2 pennies. Yes. It's what the offer by the government has to the doctors vis-a-vis what the CBA provides for. The cartoon on page 14 of the Standard matters the genocide against Tutsis, the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. And we have a caricature there of the Rwandese president, Paul Kagame, addressing the media on the 30th anniversary of the genocide against the Tutsi, and he says, never again. But he appears to be having the press in his pocket. Yeah? And they're shut.
So are we saying he's controlling the narrative? Probably that's what this cartoonist is trying to say, yes. But the cartoon on the Standard focuses on matters Rwanda and the 30th anniversary of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi.
Oh, yes. when you even take a look at the Rwandan papers, it really speaks a lot.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
And they're very key and keen on the right description of what happened.
Oh, yes.
Right now, if you say the genocide in Rwanda, they get really offended. And they have to insist, you have to say the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. Yeah, I saw even a statement by the president on Twitter, and many people from Rwanda commented and said, no, get it right. Yes.
All right. Back to Kenya, matters fueling the common mwananchi. And there you have it on page 10 of People Daily. And in more fuel, that is someone from the helicopter who's probably had stopped to fuel there. And there's another one from the government, a government officer, just fueling from a common mwananchi who's wearing tattered clothes. And he says, this is really bizarre spending of taxpayers' money. We were talking about this on Thursday, I believe. The umbrella that costs about some millions of shillings, and a smartwatch and carpet ya ile unakanyaga umekanyagia story.
It ties into the whole debate of living within your
means. Yes.
Is that really living within our means? Yeah, and that's a big question. Are we really living within our means? All right. So these are some of the stories we'll be discussing on the state of the nation this morning, and do stand by for that conversation. Today we'll be having...
There you have it.
Zach Kenothia, former Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Education. Lucy Moria, political analyst, will be in studio, as well as Eric Mongai, also a political analyst. Do stand by for this conversation, of which you can be part of through our social media pages on X at TV47 News and on Facebook, TV47 Kenya. Later on?
Oh, yes. Later on we get into Biashara, and I told you earlier on, we are focusing on matters the SMEs, the small and medium enterprises. And we'll be having a whole panel, Dr. Samuel Kimathi, who's an entrepreneur, as well as Dan Wema, a financial expert, and two other people, a boda operator, as well as Mama Mboka, just to tell us, how is this business? Is it really practical? We're really saying we really need to empower them, but what are they, sauti yao ni nini? How is it really on ground? Okay. Oh yes. And I don't know if you're a fan of avocados. I am a fan of avocados.
I'm not, but
you're not a fan.
People enjoy it.
You're not a fan of avocados?
No, I'm not.
I'm one of those people who would put
I get a lot of criticism when I say that I don't like avocado. I don't even eat it.
How?
I believe it was intended to make hair product or something like that. And I wonder even why people have it in their meals.
I'm one of those people who would have it from morning all the way to
Just
evening.
by saying that, I know I'm getting into trouble. Let me stop that.
I'd have it with the bread, the breakfast, lunch, and later on usiku. We'll be discussing that avocado farming in Kenya. How practical is it? Are we really just trying to push? Actually, Kenya is leading, is among the top producers of avocados when it comes, even in Africa, continentally. But so that's in the continent. But do the small-scale avocado farmers really even feel that kind of encouragement that we're actually leading and we even need to produce? What's their voice? We'll be discussing this with John Ruo, who's a project manager, Muranga Avocado Corporate Union, and just getting to understand how these corporate unions work on the same. You can always be part of this conversation. 22047 is our SMS number, TV47KE on Facebook. Yango Nyeringita _
at Fred Indemulio on X. Time for a break. We'll be back with a lot more. Welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV 47 with me, Fred Indemuli. Time for us to take a look at the state of the nation. Very varied headlines today on all the dailies. Very interesting discussions. Not just to do with the fake fertilizer probe on the front page of the Standard. Musalia to fold ANC in grand UDA plan as the elections continue on the Daily Nation. I think the People Daily, who's telling the truth, matters fertilizer as well as a Ruto plan to deploy military to West Pokot. And we'll be looking at some of these and trying to tie the connection. This morning we're privileged to have with us in studio Lucy Moria, political analyst. It's good to have you in studio. Karibu sana. Good morning. Next to Madam Moria, we do have Zach Kinothia, a former Chief Administrative Secretary, Ministry of Education. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Good to see you, bro.
TV 47. Good to see you too. Ni vizuri kukuona.
Asante.
Last but definitely not least, a familiar face on this panel, Eric Mungai, political analyst. Karibu sana.
Hey, asante. Good morning. You know, Fred, it's a very chilly morning.
It is.
But it's very warm in here.
Oh, yes. It depends on how hot your coffee is. Where you are. So, yes, let's start off with things that have been making headlines for the past months. And finally, this week, what you've seen is that the president has actually broken his silence on a lot of these things. He had maintained a studious silence for quite a while. And I remember some headlines, I think last week or the week before, were insisting that he needs to break his silence, especially on the strike by doctors. This week, immediately came back from that trip to West Africa. He talked and said, we need to live within our means. We must live within our means. Yesterday, while he was in West Pokot, he talked about security. And he said that Kenya will deploy the military to the troubled northern parts of Kenya, in West Pokot and other areas, to try and ensure that peace resumes and to rebuild the schools that have been destroyed by bandits. In matters, on matters fertilizer, he also talked about it yesterday. And yes, I'm referring to page 7 of the Standard, and he said fake fertilizer dealers to be charged. And he even made an impromptu visit to the National Cereals and Produce Board depot in Eldoret and directed ANCPB officials to fast-track the distribution of subsidized fertilizer. But as he said that those behind the fake fertilizer will be charged, his cabinet secretary in charge of agriculture was appearing before MPs and insisting that there is nothing like fake fertilizer. That hiyo ni maneno tu. So and it's this lack of proper communication or disjointed communication from governments, and one may ask, what value does a president's word have? Are we seeing any consequence of his word when it comes? People are calling for him to come and say something, meaning that they were hoping that once the president speaks, this will be resolved. But you're seeing he comes and says one thing, his CS is saying something else totally different. Lucy, let's start with you. What does this say about this government? And does the president's word have any meaningful consequence?
The government is full of confusion. It has no coordination. They're like reading from different scripts. And when the chief in command speaks, I think his word should be fine, because he must have done his groundwork to understand so that they can speak the same. And it is also an embarrassment that when the president is accepting there is a mistake, someone will be arrested, the minister is busy saying, there's nothing, it has not reached me yet. I've not gotten it, like maybe in writing. I don't know, maybe they should give him in writing that now that one has not happened. So it's sort of confusion.
Yes.
Yes.
Zaki, you've been in government and you've worked in government. This kind of disjointed communication has a lot of consequence in itself. Yeah. When the president says one thing and a CS or a CAS says something totally different, it could have an impact on even the kind of output this government will have.
Of course, Fred, there is an impact, and there shall be for a long time coming. But when it comes to government, government is a behemoth. And unless there is a disciplined head of government, the government is bound to make mistakes in communication, because communication is the most essential part of governing people. Because you could do good things. You remember the former regime where we served. Good things are done, but they are not communicated. So people start complaining. Bad things were done by bad governments before, but they were communicated in a good manner so that in Moi's time, we could always hear Rais Moi tawala, Kenya iendelee, maji iwekwe, stima zitambe. There was nothing essentially happening, but communication was done in a jointed manner. But let me tell you contextually about President Ruto's government. As a father, you find out that one of the most church-going village girl has been impregnated. And then you say, we will crack down on the person who has impregnated the minor. In the end, you find out that it was your son. Mm-hmm. The approach would be different if you are the one enforcing the law. Mm-hmm. Because the mistake has happened and you have vowed to show resilience and morality in the society. But you find out it was your son who waylaid and cheated that girl along the way for some time and finally made her pregnant. This is a case of our government. That I trust Ruto. For me, I trust Ruto's message that fertilizer was fake. There is an ongoing fake. Don't trust me, Mitheka. Mitheka is a little dancing flower girl in some orchestra. Mm-hmm. Don't trust him. He's trying to put up a good face, denying other people who have been denying. But the president say, I know there are saboteurs. Actually, he called them economic saboteurs. We know these people who are doing this. Trust the president has machinery running from intelligence, investigators, running from the media, people like you who have investigated these things. He has farmers. Remember, he went to Eldoret to see farmers who showed him that this is donkeys' faces plus sand. So he has to believe it. This is the problem of government, communicating different things. But why is a president caught in the mix of this mess? Because he can't disentangle himself.
Oh, okay. Eric, the president, according to Zach, cannot disentangle himself, but he is in charge. He is intended to be in charge by all standards. But the question is, when it gets to certain issues, because we're looking at very key aspects of society, agriculture, security, health, even education and transport, the disjointed communication has an effect of perpetuating a deficit in trust from the general public, that whatever you say, we cannot believe it. Cabinet minister says something that is not believable, the president says something else. That in itself will have political problems, will portend political problems for Kenya Kwanza, don't you think?
I think so. You know, Fred, sometimes I also doubt whether I am real. Because
why would you do that?
Because in this country, every time you see a scandal or a perceived scandal, you imagine you have consumed the particular product that has been deemed to be fake. You know, we've just come from allegations of KEBS sometimes had said cooking oil is fake, is substandard.
Sugar.
Expired.
Then we went ahead, we almost consumed sugar laced with mercury.
Almost or did?
We did.
We did. Now you see, even when I'm on set this morning, I'm not sure how many fake things I have allegedly consumed and whether when I pinch myself, I'm actually a real person. But I agree with you in matters communication. There appears to be some level of equivocacy. But you know, governments across the world, their rule book first and foremost is deny. It's like union leaders. When you want to negotiate with them, they first say no, regardless of whatever it is you're saying. They first say no. Then they say, okay, what else? I think you must have been saying something. So I think this is a particular case where the CS in charge has been very consistent in saying that, there hasn't been any fake fertilizer. But partly there could be some substandard fertilizer, 3,000 bags, I think, to be specific. But I think DCI has made several arrests in pursuit of what the president said. I saw several lorries were also impounded. I think it is a company called KCL, allegedly, if I'm not wrong. The directors have also been arrested. I have seen, there are some lawyers, when you see in this country, sometimes you perceive maybe your kitu ni ukweli, wameshikwa. So I have seen the whole hulabaloo appearing in public. So I think, yes, the government has taken action a little bit too late in the day, because why not, for the fact that the media exposed these dubious traders, people would still be planting with donkey feces and mixed with sand out there in the village. And you know, I also come from a county in Kiambu where we also use fertilizer for farming. So I think it's, when you imagine that a farmer removed their hard-earned cash from last year's produce and went and purchased fake substandard fertilizer, I think it calls for stringent and stern action against such kind of traders. And I always say, Fred, when I'm on this show, we are lucky as a country that the prices of rope usually does not go up. You know, the price of rope has been constant.
A rope for what?
We should use
Hanging.
for hanging people, and we should hang them in broad daylight, because it's your hard-earned money when you go and spend it on someone who was supposed to give you good product, and they end giving you something that is substandard so that they can enrich themselves and their families. I think it's time we exercise some muscle and see some people hanging somewhere, so that it can be a lesson to those and to many others.
Yes. It says a lot when this is one of those flagship projects by the government that the president was so passionate about, the distribution of fertilizer. It is among those things that he talked about like immediately a month or two after he took over, that they will subsidize production and not consumption. And then months later, there's fake fertilizer. Of course, there's that element of sabotage. But when such a government program is infiltrated by saboteurs, it says a lot even about the implementation. The intention may have been good initially, but the way it's rolled out leaves a lot to be desired, don't you think, Lucy?
Actually, I don't think that even the intention might not have been good, because from the beginning, from the first day, we started the issues about fertilizer. The fertilizer which was being issued was for free, and then they started selling. So it started from day one, and
so it began on a wrong footing.
On a wrong footage, and the essence of giving the farmers fertilizer was so that they can increase their yield. But right now, even if fertilizer comes now, after today or after next week, is it going to help? The farmers have already planted, the rains are already pouring, so there's no way that they are going to salvage anything anyway. So it is all total mess, and I don't think they had any good intention even before. Farmers, Kenyans have complained about incompetence of these CSs and the PSs. It is a matter of incompetence, because there is no way people would start complaining. The Mwananchi is complaining from the beginning about it is not supposed to be this sold. Munya clearly said that it was not for sale. It was given by Australia, by Russia for free. And now here you are lying to Kenyans that you are selling to them at throwaway price so that the yield can increase. And nothing happens. If anything, it's making donkeys' faces and carriados sad, and then you pack it in government
bags.
How is that? We should not have worried Mithika Linturi as a minister. The very first time when people started complaining, even before it reached the president, because he's the eye, he's always saying, I'm on the ground. Would not have worried him?
And for any farmer,
for any farmer
whose land is now under a very expensive film of sand and animal manure,
exactly,
they may have lost a lot of trust in the government. Government plan.
They have lost a lot of trust, and all of us have lost. And we had already lost. Now it is sealed that there is no trust.
How do you repair, from a government perspective, Zach? How do you repair that trust deficit once you lose it?
A form of reparation, a form of it, would be the president taking stern action against the said perpetrators. But I'm saying the president, I'm not saying Ruto. Because Ruto will not do it. Because he is not honest on this matter. And I'd say this, looking into the eyes of the viewer, telling them that the broken trust from what Lucy has said, that a country from the very far east gives us 800,000 metric tons of fertilizer for the farmers in only 3 countries, in sub-Saharan Africa, Angola, Zimbabwe, and Kenya. But in the wisdom, they call it the wisdom of fools, but in the wisdom of the government, they repackage that fertilizer and give it at a premium price to the farmer. Mm-hmm. So to a farmer who was supposed to have enjoyed the so-called Kenya Kwanza's government subsidy program of fertilizer, first of all has to go back to the pocket. So trust was lost from beginning. Then when they realized that Russia, after flagging off that kind of illicit behavior by Kenyan government, could not give more free fertilizer, they go ahead and, Fred, contract their state buccaneers, who are their political friends, and give them this work. The people who have been mentioned by my brother here have been seen appearing in the same platform with the president.
So if it is saboteurs, it's people from within.
He's sabotaging himself essentially, because the state business has been reduced into a distribution of goodies instead of giving the people who have professional experience and goodwill to supply things as essential as fertilizer. So to a farmer, your question, to a farmer whose land is now looking desolate, if the president was a serious person, and if the president incumbent had any respect to the office that he's holding, one, he should have cracked the whip. By the time he rose up to admit that it is true, fake fertilizer has gone out, he should have continued by ending and saying, fellow Kenyans, in a bid to show that I am not going to tolerate saboteurs, I have this afternoon revoked the appointment of CS Mithika Linturi and PS Zach Kinuthia, for instance, and I have declared all fertilizers to the farmer null and void, and I'll give more in whatever, something, so that the farmers can say, hey, our president has really felt for us.
Hence my question when we started on the consequence of the president's word. But just before that, as we continue, we're receiving some breaking news. Yes. There's been a road crash, another road crash near Ngata Bridge in Nakuru, where a van has rammed into another stalled van, and at least 10 people are feared dead. Reporter Chichi Josfine in Nakuru is headed there and will be updating us on what's happening. This is just one of the many road accidents that keep happening. I've seen even on X, another accident happened somewhere in Kericho involving a Probox vehicle and another, and more people are said to have perished in that as well. And I will be bringing you more details on that. Back to our discussion. We'll be getting more details on that, Eric.
But on that matter, as you go to Eric,
because we'll come to talk about that, because it's among the security, transport, health, education, all these things. There's so many things to talk about them, and this is one of them.
Okay.
And we'll come to that. But let's finish up with this thing of fertilizer. Now that you've brought
So then what the president should do, as I conclude on that, what the president should do, I hope he should, but I'm sure he won't. Because as I've told you, the example of a son impregnating village daughter, village girl somewhere, there's so much you can do as a parent. And we will not talk more about that. He will not do anything about it. I hope Kenyans shall not forget the trail of this destruction in 3 years' time.
Okay.
And I hope they will make a good decision as they determine their next legislators. Because a good parliament should have sanctioned the president, even as they sanctioned the minister, and tell him, Mr. President, the buck doesn't stop with the minister in any government in the world. The buck stops with you. If you don't correct this manner, we shall impeach you and send you home. They are speaking for the people.
Okay.
At least they are giving people hope. But now they are singing for him. It's a praise and choir team led by the deputy president, who come from agricultural rich places like Yasaid, Kiambu, Muranga, and other places. Amen. He will deny, and he will only, like a parrot, repeat what the president has said.
Okay. The buck stops with the president. His communication needs to count for something.
Sure.
Needs to be consequential. His word is what Kenyans have been waiting for. He has spoken. Do you feel any consequence of his word?
I think first, I'm listening to the sentiments from Madam Lucy and Madam Zach. And
Madam Zach?
You have called me Madam.
Madam Zach.
It's out of order. This show should be declared over.
I'm now into order. You know, being a leader of praise and worship is not necessarily a bad thing, so long as the song resonates with the listeners, okay? So I don't think being a praise and worship leader is necessarily a bad thing.
In this matter, it's
But
bad.
having said that, and having used also the analogy from Zach of your son impregnating a young lady somewhere, or a minor for that matter, you know, what if you find out that this that you call your son is not even your son after all, you know? You could also discover that this person who you do not want to met justice because he is your son, you could also discover, you know, somewhere down the line, he's not your son. So when it comes to meting of justice, it does not matter whether someone is adopted or they are your biological son. Justice is justice. Secondly, you cannot go on a sacking spree because you have economic saboteurs in the system. Why? Zach has been in government and will tell you, it is not everyone who likes the fact that you're in leadership. At many times, there are going to be saboteurs who are going to sabotage the programs that you have decided to enroll as a government. And that is natural across the world. You know, when we say that Russia gave Kenyans free fertilizer, I think it's good that sometimes we also stop being economical with the truth. And with all due respect to my brother and sister, you know, most of this fertilizer, government does not trade. Government uses traders who bring in fertilizer, and that is why it is called subsidized fertilizer. Because when I, as an entrepreneur, bring in the fertilizer and say I'm charging 6,000 Kenya shillings for the fertilizer, the farmer will buy it 2,500. The rest of the money is what is called subsidy from government. So when we say that government got free fertilizer, and it is the fertilizer that subsequently was given to the farmers, you know, they should have been given for free. The fertilizer that came from Russia was not fully processed. It had to go to the facilities local here to be processed, which is a cost in itself. So I think that's, even as we bash, there is also room for not being economical with the truth. Lastly, being seen with the president, even when we know you are a rogue supplier, is not an endorsement that the president, you know, when you're a public figure, you're likely to take photos with very many people. You know, today if I take a photo with Zach and Lucy, and tomorrow I perform an economic, I become an economic saboteur, you know, Zach has the right to deny me and say, you know, we met at a certain forum.
I don't even know his name.
I don't know his name. You know, I met him for the first time. So, you know, taking a photo with the so-called economic saboteurs or them being seen with the president does not necessarily confer endorsement on the president's part of the saboteurs themselves. But I agree, in terms of communication, should have been done better. This business sometimes of deny, even when Kenyans can clearly see that something is wrong, does not really contribute to the deficit that is there in terms of trust. And remember, the president fired when the mosquito debacle came up. There was a casualty from my county in Kiambu, Gatondo North, of a PS who was sacked. In fact, she had not tested the salary, I think, for like 4 months, and she was fired. So in terms of president's goodwill and capacity to sack those that he deems to be directly involved, he has shown goodwill. And I'm sure, as I've said, even on this issue of fake fertilizer, we will see action if action has not been taken, but I do not imagine that action will take the form of sacking the CS.
Okay. And even as we continue these discussions, a quick reminder of that breaking news story, or rather developing story. At least a number of people are feared dead after this road crash at Niangata Bridge in Nakuru, along the Nakuru-Eldoret Highway, after a van rammed into another stalled vehicle. And our reporter, Chichi Josephine, is on her way there and will be updating us as soon as she gets the details. Now, this comes only hours after another accident happened at Dukamoja in Kericho, where a small Probox vehicle crashed into a lorry, and it is believed that about 6 people lost their lives in that incident. We'll be updating you. But let's now focus on the transport sector. And I've listed it among the sectors that need consideration and attention. Transport, security, education, agriculture and health. But when it comes to transport and all these road accidents, are we correct, are we being fair when we accuse the government of failure to some extent? Because a lot of these accidents are blamed on human error and speeding, which has nothing to do with the government. Lucy, or am I wrong?
Before we continue with focusing on the issues we just mentioned, we would like to condole with those families that have just lost their loved one this morning, those who lost in Meru yesterday, those who lost in Meru Road, Nairobi, also on Sunday with the silver. Yeah, so it's like every day. We are really sorry as citizens. And yes, we cannot separate the government with this. This is all as a result of corruption. And that's why all these things are. Also, this is something we should have already have had, because since the beginning of January, every day, every single day, there's an accident, even including school children, every day. I think our country actually should have been declared, it's like a dead zone, and the president should have actually talked about it. I don't think this is I remember one time when during the campaigns in the US, and Obama was in the East Coast, the other campaigner was on the other end of the country. There was a crash, which they lost like 7 people only. And all the campaign stopped, and they came together just because they lost 7 citizens in one crash. But ours now, it is the students from the KU students, the whole of almost every day. We lose 30 of them, 20 of them. It's like we are losing stones, yeah, on non-human beings. We have lost enough people, and it's every day. So there must be something that should have made the minister and actually even the president to mention about this. But it seems like the lives of Kenyans don't matter anymore here in Kenya. Before then, every other week, we lost some girl in what do you call these places they go?
Airbnbs.
The Airbnbs. Every week, one is chopped, one is killed, another one is killed. I expected also that one, someone serious to talk, because that is a matter of also insecurity. And that is actually the time we were busy sending our soldiers to Haiti. Now the question of accidents every day, and this is the time we are pushing our doctors. So those people are supposed to be rushed to the emergency room, and there's no one there. A lot of them, they need critical care at this time during all these accidents. And that one will not be gotten. They need X-rays, they need all this. And so that means we continue. One reason we are losing them is because of health department and the roads department.
Okay.
The health department, if we are treating our doctors right, what their doctors actually, I'm sure we are going to that. But it is connected. All these ministries are connected actually. Waziri, you can tell us. They are interconnected. There is no Minister of Health without roads. There is no roads without agriculture, because
it's called one government approach.
It's one government approach. So there's no way we will be talking. They should, right now, the thing we should be seeing from the head of state is having emergency meetings with them, solving this, because they're intertwined. But now there's nothing happening. Unfortunately, the losers are Kenyan people.
Yet Kipchumba Murkomen, the Minister for Transport, said that some of the issues we're dealing with on our roads are things that have been there and existed for so many years before he became minister. Really trying to absolve himself or his role or his office from blame when it comes to the many road accidents. Do you think it's justified in doing so?
Let me answer straight by saying it's not justified, and refer to my sister Lucy here and say pundits who have been very careful in studying President Ruto, especially in the recent times, would agree that, or rather have posited out there, the president does not care in circumstances of national scale which does not benefit his pundits economically. Unless a crisis produces a deal of a kind which is likely to bring money to the pockets of some people, it will not matter. And they give an example of housing levy. If these things happening to doctors and to accidents and to fertilizer are likely to elicit the financial benefit like the one housing levy brings, President Ruto will come fuming, threatening everybody across his destruction trail that you mtaniona, because there is money. In the end, there are deals to make, there are tenders to offer, there are houses to share to his political friends, and there is billions of money to pocket. Which billions are there in accidents? Which billions are there in a fake fertilizer already in the market? Which billions are there in doctors going on strike? Which billions are there for him and his friends? So Kenyans should not expect too much. By the way, I'm appealing to Kenyans to stop disturbing Ruto. They're just disturbing him. His interests are not there. In public affairs, public education, public health, public safety, his interests are not there. His interests are in public dealings. And I want to caution my brother here. I can see he's using an Amaco book. So probably he may be a friend to...
If you know, you know.
Why is he casting?
No, I'm just saying. It's not him.
It's not necessary, though. It's not necessary.
If he's not able to...
It is a business. It is a business in Kenya, and we have no right to watch it.
I agree with him.
Business.
That's what I'm saying. It is important that one shows loyalty where you are a beneficiary of some products. So he may not be able to understand President Ruto as he tries to say he's being seen with the people he's calling saboteurs, has no relationship whatsoever. This one is naive of him, and he has his right. I'm just saying on his rebuttal.
Yes.
Exactly.
I agree.
So now, let me go back to your question on whether it is justified for Murkomen to say what he's not justified, because this is it. The family of the member of County Assembly of Meru, who lost his two sons, his two children, in a gory accident, cannot take a response from a minister that these are problems I've inherited. The parents who are burying their children across the country with pain, from Kenyatta University to other universities to the accident that has just happened down in Gata, Nakuru, cannot take an answer from a government minister that I have inherited problems. Every parent who has lost a child, or every child who has lost a parent, or every spouse who has lost a spouse cannot be consoled by a reckless talk as the one that Murkomen is giving out there, absolving himself as having inherited a mess. And this is, again, Fred, as you have put it rightly, communication. Mm-hmm. The government should communicate principally, above other things, hope. The government should communicate principally, above other things, solutions. But we have a government of ministers, agriculture, health, and now transport, blaming circumstances beyond them, in quotes, that they have inherited problems. Fair enough. If they inherited problems, are they in office? Do they have resources to solve problems? Mm-hmm. Can they at least speak hope? Hope is not sold. Kenyans are not taxed to be given hope. If in this show we would be asked to give a solution, I would ask Murkomen and his employer a single question. These accidents are happening at the behest of a reform of transport that was initiated by John Meshuki the late. And one of the most important things he did was to limit the speed of vehicles. Mm-hmm. Because what is killing our people is speed. What is killing our people is unsafety, unsafetiness within these vehicles. If the car crashes or the bus rolls, those who are strapped with belts most likely survive. I've been a victim of survival because I had a safety belt. So, do the government know exactly whether the safety belts are still there? Okay. I have been driving a small car, and sometimes I see a bus passing me when I'm at 90. I drive my own saloon, which I can go up to 100 in designated places, I'm allowed by law. Then I see a matatu passing me like lightning. And always I say, if I'm traveling at 90 and a car or a vehicle or a bus passes me, it goes without saying that it is driving at a speed more than 90. But we know that the limited speed for public transport in Kenya is 80.
Okay.
Murkomen hasn't commented on whether the compliance on 80 kilometers per hour limit is still being used. This is where he should begin. Instead of blaming people, he should begin there. The only thing I have heard Murkomen say is that, oh, Kenyans should support traffic police. Who doesn't? Eric and I and Lucy will not, we will not show policemen at Madarao. We respect policemen. And how can I help a policeman? For me, as Zach, as Eric, as Lucy, I cannot do anything so that I enable the policeman to do his work.
Eric.
So this blame game is a replica of a failed governance system, which I ask my brother not to defend by saying sacking. Kibaki sacked an entire government.
Okay. Eric, your take on that?
Well, as I said, one, I have a right to be accused to be naive, because, you know, accusation, anyone can accuse anyone of anything, so long as you provide evidence as to your accusations. That is one. Number two, the issue of road accidents and road carnage in this country is a concern to all of us as Kenyans. Why? Because when you lose a son, when you lose a daughter or a parent in a road accident, those people are not coming back. I mean, that's the end of it. The last substantive cabinet secretary we had in terms of transport was Mishuki. And that is in terms of public goodwill. Then when, I remember rightly, when Chirao Alimakwere succeeded him as a transport minister, there was a spike in road carnage in the country. And when he was asked, because, you know, he used to spend a lot of time in airports and you know, he was not really interested in public safety. You know, public safety. Unajua hii maneno ya barabara is for common man. You know, when you're a minister, sometimes you tend to use the air more, except for the tarmac on the runway. And when he was asked, he said that is the work of the police to deal with road issues. That was Chirao Ali Makwere for you. He was then inherited subsequently by the former CS Macharia. For, you know, same ministry. In fact, it was all over social media that was another cabinet secretary who was a cabinet secretary for airports and for seaports. Now we subsequently have, you know, Kipchumba Murkomen, who in one way or another has also tried, but you can see from the photos, a majority of them are also in airports and
airstrips.
I think, one, there needs to be a concerted effort between the Ministry of Transport and the Ministry of Internal Security. Why? Because you need the apparatus from Interior Ministry for you to enforce regulations coming from the transport sector. And Zach says it correctly. When you're driving on the highway and a matatu just zooms past you, when you ask the cabinet secretary, you know, he says, okay, it is true that is under my docket, but that is more specific towards NTSA. But remember, in this country, it is not possible for you to do anything without political goodwill. Even if you're a director of NTSA today, you arrest someone on the road, you arrest, say, a matatu, and the SACCO chairman calls the CS or calls the head of security somewhere. You know, as a normal police officer, you care for your job, and you're willing to let whichever matatu go. After all, you know, it is not your children in that matatu. So I think we need to take this issue of carnage with the seriousness that it deserves. Because I always say this, today as a CS, you might not do much. You might think that that's Mongai's problem. But tomorrow on the road, or you remember last time a CS had a mishap with the helicopter. If it had gone otherwise, you might end up using the same roads, being taken to hospital. So it is incumbent upon you as a CS, even when sometimes an issue does not directly affect you, because, you know, sometimes when you're big, you are insulated from the miseries of the common folk. But it is always good once in a while to have advisors that, what do they call it in Latin, memorimontum, something, to remind you that you know, you are human, Fred. And these things that sometimes you tend to ignore and things that do not make a difference, your relatives who might not be as high-end as you are using the same matatus and could end up in that Nithi bridge. Lastly, the accidents come against a backdrop of the doctor's strike. And what you're having now is you have carnage, and then you have survivors who have to be taken to a government hospital, because you know the first point of call usually is not a private hospital. You'll be taken to a dispensary somewhere for management, or to a level 2 or to a level 3. You get to a level 2 or a level 3, and the doctors are on strike.
The clinical officers are not there.
And they are not there. And you remember one of the accident victims in Nithi, it was alleged they passed on after getting to a hospital, and they could not get emergency care. And you see now how one government approach, how sometimes, you know, sleeping on the job on one ministry could lead to consequences, you know, in subsequent sectors. So I think we need to wake up and say, look, one child lost is far too much, because we can lose a child who would have made a better president in future, and they are gone now.
Okay.
And why do we need to invest in our own people who are paying taxes and have them lose their lives on a daily basis? I think we need a concerted effort to curb the same.
Does it worry you that the president has not commented on any of these road accidents since the year began? Because the very first week of this year, there were quite a number of accidents. I think over 30 people died within the first week of this year. Does it worry you that the president is yet to comment on this?
No, he has commented actually. And you remember when the KU accident happened along Mombasa Road, you remember when they had the memorial service, the chief guest was actually the First Lady herself. So in terms of symbolism and in terms of the government being present, yes, at the highest level that has been there. But my concern is, one life lost is too late. It's too late. Because you see, even if I usually say this, even if the president were to come out and issue whatever orders, when I sit in my car as Mongai, and I'm driving down the highway at 150, you know, as much as sometimes we blame policemen, when I sit in my car, I have control of the specific vehicle that I am driving. So even if government were to intervene at whatever quarters, there is also a responsibility on my part as a driver to ensure the safety of other road users. Okay. Because then we must balance the discussion between what government is able to do and my responsibility as an individual when I'm...
But Eric, let's not pass that.
Because the consequence of the president's word in all this...
No, what he has said is wrong. Let's correct it for the sake of... And then you'll pick it from there. Because he said we should not be economical with the truth. And because we are in TV, 47 counties, where everybody is watching in Kenya, I think we should not mislead Kenyans through your question by his answer. Your question was clear. Has the president commented?
And so was my answer.
The answer is no. His wife, the first lady, was not elected by anybody. If she went to KU for memorial, that was an act of her humane feelings. And she was totally in order. And we were very happy to see her there, leading prayers for the victims. But the president who was elected and sworn in, remember, Rachel Ruto, the first lady, did not touch the sword, did not touch the constitution. She only placed her hand on the Bible. So saying that the president was represented by the first lady is a miscarriage of public trust that has been given to the president has steered clear of this matter, and I've told you the reason.
No,
there is no billions.
I think
you'll give me an opportunity to debunk this.
Yes. And attending memorial services, which it is after people have died, and the president speaking, I'm saying this because even Nakominsha is always on funerals. There is a difference between attending a funeral service. You can even attend a funeral service of someone you don't even care about. People do that. And hearing a directive from a president, because this is a very serious thing we are talking about, those are two different things. Our government is full of defense mechanism. We cannot keep on saying what was not done before, what has not done before. We found it like this. The essence of any government or anyone who wants to take power, seeking power, it is to make changes. The things that were not done right should be done right. So we cannot keep on saying it wasn't done. Why, when did you come in place then? Why are you the new government? Even if the next government is coming, it is coming telling people that we want to do what was not done. So if you're not doing that, then you're not helping Kenyans in any sense. So this selling of unrealistic hope is not a strategy. Kenyans, we cannot continue being so, and we are not stupid. President mwenyewe anasema Kenyans, wajinga waliisha Kenya. So wajinga waliisha Kenya. We want to hear the president being in charge, taking charge of the country, and people like Inakumincha, Mithika, these are people who should be way gone.
And we'll come back after the break to discuss matters health.
My last
I wanted Eric
my
to
last
make
one
a comment
before
just
Eric
before we go on a break.
speaks. Kenyans do not need affordable housing right now. What they need affordable life. We're having a problem with the NHIF.
But affordable housing is part of affordable life.
Even those people who are having these accidents, most of them, even the NHIF cannot work.
Is it
they don't
housing
go
a
in
cost?
these hospitals.
Because
No,
it's time
it's
for
housing a cost.
Kenyans are living somewhere.
Let's take a break now.
You don't
Let's take a break because we are due for a break.
Housing is a cost.
Ukipangwa Mungai saizi
I was to give you an opportunity to debunk what he had
Please, you
said,
will
but
give me
because of
after.
that, I'll
Yes,
give
we
you after.
need
Let's take a
Give me
break.
after to debunk.
You're watching Morning Cafe.
Kenyans-
on TV 47.
Kenyans need affordable
We'll be back
life,
after the
not
break.
housing.
You're still watching Morning Cafe on TV 47. And we continue our discussion with Lucy Moria, Zaki Nothia, and Eric Mungai. And we want, I think, let me give you that opportunity that you had, because you needed to answer, Zach.
It's important that, you know, the Deputy President the other day led the nation in apologizing what had happened during the campaigns to the former. When you become a first lady, do you become former?
Yes, it is former first lady.
You're always first lady, yeah? Yeah. And I think in the same spirit, we must not trivialize the gesture that was shown by the first lady in commiserating with the parents, relatives, and friends of the carnage that happened to KU students. I think it is important sometimes to lay at the doorstep what seems right and actually acknowledge that that is right. Because, you see, you cannot go to a memorial service that does not exist. And you cannot say that you're waiting for an accident to happen so that you can go to a memorial service. I think we need to debunk that. As to whether the president has come out strongly to issue a directive against the road accidents, he himself as a person, the answer is no. But remember, the president delegates authority to the people that he appoints. And so far as we speak, the CS for roads, you recall NTSA, though it's a knee-jerk reaction and it happens in almost all governments, but NTSA was on the roads the other day checking for, vehicles that... roadworthiness. And roadworthiness. Though it's a knee-jerk, it's what we are used to, perpetually reactionary. But where there are efforts and where we see that government is taking action to curb road carnage, let us applaud.
Okay.
Where we think more can be done, let us also raise our voices so that the same is actually implemented.
Okay, and I want us now to continue and move on this conversation to something else. And still on the same theme about the president's word and whether or not it is consequential and what it means. The president this week, when he came back from his trip, he made a comment, he broke his silence on the doctor's strike, and he made a rallying call that we must live within our means. I want us to examine that now. And what it means for the country. Are we pursuing austerity as a nation? And do we feel that the president is genuine in making that assertion that we must live within our means? Or is it just to the doctors alone? Is the government itself communicating that sentiment, probably even without words? Is it the image you see? Is it the perception you get that, yes, even this government is pursuing austerity?
The president, the way he behaves is like he's another planet, we're in another planet, and it's like he's talking to a bunch of fools, people who do not even think or remember what he said. Our president has always said about living within our means. In a home, when you're talking to your children the way you expect the things to be, don't drink, don't smoke, but you're smoking. You're drinking. By the way, for your information, children don't follow. What you say is what you do. They are learning. So what we see with our member of parliament, with the whole government, with the president himself, even the day he was making that announcement about our doctors, he just landed. Are we living? Are we living his word? Is he living what he's saying? So it was very unfortunate that the president treated, I would say trivially, because when we are having, and that is even the time he would have even mentioned in the case of these accidents, the case of people dying. But we would have seen him even like begging to sit down with these doctors. There's something he told them about a father being fair, something like that. Then I remember the chairman of the doctors telling him, also children, when they ask their father for fish, he does not give them stones. So that means people also think. So you should not be thinking, if you quote the Bible, others also know how to quote it. And that is how we've been hiding behind the Bible and trashing things that really matter.
Okay.
I would have expected the president to have taken this issue of doctors very seriously. I don't think actually the money the doctors are asking is too much. These doctors, I think we have all been to school. They have taken the longest in school, at least 8 to 10 years, trying to be doctors so that they can serve our country. And just trivially, jokingly, like Kama Musaha, Nakumincha says they are not even doctors yet. When how do you expect a minister? Does she even know what it takes to become a doctor? Someone asked. If she's one, I don't know. And if she is not a medical doctor. These are people who are coming to save their lives, where we are seeing them going to the funerals to escort people. It is through these doctors who are doing this. Okay. So doctors, I would have expected to hear the cabinet. Naturally, the key to it is intertwined. What did you tell us it is when all the cabinet come together?
One government approach.
Yes, yes, the government approach. Okay. They will sit all of them because they intertwine and they come up, afadhali even Kenyans, the money we have being cut for affordable housing, tuambiwe tunakatwa hii pesa taxes because of madaktari. Okay. Because they are daktaris, they are directly connected to citizens more than the so-called affordable.
Let's focus more on that statement on living within our means. And we are already into the budget-making process, and the proposal has gone as high as 4.3 trillion shillings against revenue collection of about 2 trillion shillings by KRA, meaning that we are already 100% over-ambitious with our plans. So when the president says we need to live within our means, there's already a problem with the budgeting process. That is where all the expenditure is actually determined. With the headlines that we saw last week of wastage, and not just in the national government, even in the county governments, with the governor's seat costing about 750,000, a smartwatch for 645,000 shillings, umbrellas for 3 million shillings for State House, and even renovation of State House and all this. And those are just examples. There's so much, when it comes to wastage. When it comes to a government approach, and you've been an officer in a government, can you really talk about living within your means if you're not doing it in the budget-making process?
I'll give you an example. Because previously in government, in an austere government, actions speak louder than words. The president, the retired president, because in English there is no former president, can only be retired president. Retired President Kenyatta wanted to reduce budget in 2020 when COVID struck and there are no more income coming from taxes. The first thing he did by saying we live within our means was to cut my salary. He began with his salary, then he cut Ruto's salary, then he cut minister's salary, then he cut chief administrative salary, all the PSAs. And I'm telling you, my brother, for 3 months, our salary was experiencing a guillotine with no proportion. Now, then he said, no more foreign travel. And true to the word, my passport had a visa on it slated for a Canadian trip. I still have the visa, but not the trip.
You never traveled?
No, I could not travel. And I wanted to play monkey business. But I found the government's hand is so long, it can catch you anywhere. So I didn't travel. And majority of my colleagues in cabinet then could not travel. They didn't travel. Then he said, no more local travel. Let's use Zoom, let's use Teams, whatever meetings. Those things were new. Do you know all the bookings that had been made in Mombasa, Kisumu, Naivasha were cancelled? And hotels given the fees that is prescribed if you cancel booked things. Is that an action or is that word?
It's an action.
That's an action. Yes. And when he said Kenyans should now live within means, they understood him. That money was saved to pay teachers.
Even students actually are learning through the TV.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They were paid to pay teachers who could not go to school. Teachers did not go to teach because we suspended learning. Do you know we paid teachers 3 months without going to teach with the money we saved? So when you tell Kenyans that time, live within means, they will help you. Just as he mentioned about the last substantive cabinet secretary for transport, Mechuki, when corruption was being fought by Kibaki in 2003, 2004, it was Kenyans who helped the police to curb corrupt cases, and they would report it. So let me come back to your point of expenditure. I was so flabbergasted when President Ruto left West African trip, jetted in a kind of sneaking in the morning, straight on, and went to an Eldoret church on Sunday. A man who has not sat down with Doctors' Union, Clinical Officers' Union, to listen to why they failed with the minister, why they failed with the PS, why they failed with the public service, head of public service, instead of saying, now I want those ministers to come and you guys, as a father would do, as a good father would do to a family, and say, yes, my wife, your mother, has not been able to talk to you. when I was away. Your uncle, my brother, or mother's brother, did not talk these matters. So come, my children, let's see what's the problem here. So that even if you know you are going to support your minister, I mean, in this case, your wife, you know, you are going to say, let us now agree. As a father, I want to make a salient promise now that your matters will be taken. But guys, look at my situation in the country. Please, let me say, for now, I can do X, resume work. I know I am one owing you, and we'll do this. Because this is what President Uhuru did. This problem of CBA is not Ruto's problem. But the way Uhuru dealt with this problem is much more important than the way he's dealing with it, because he used to call them. He used to sit down with them, and to show goodwill, he went ahead to even appoint one of them in government as a CEC for health in Nairobi County, so that these things that government is able to do, the guy can see by action. Because as an activist, sometimes you may not be able to appreciate the weight of governance. So he showed goodwill. He used to engage them, and they never again went on the street after 2019. Why? Because he may not have fulfilled every element in the bargain, but he was able to, as adults, engage them and show them respect, show them honor, and he was able to understand them, as Lucy is saying. So what I'm saying, Ruto's principal failure is the failure to govern salient issues of our nation, and I suppose is because, one, the people he has brought to work with on this matter are rookies. Number two, he has no interest in this, only answering them on TV by saying that we live our means. Why would the State House ask for money, and then Office of the President ask for money, then double that money in 3 months, and take money to Office of the Deputy President, and take money to Office of Second Lady of Deputy President, then take money again to PCS, Premier Cabinet Secretary, and take money again to spouse of Cabinet Secretary, then take that money again and use it for prayer rallies, take that money again and have prayer warriors, then you are saying, fellow Kenyans, live within the means.
Okay.
Tell that to the birds.
Eric, let me ask one before. It's just a question. Was like the kind of money which was used to renovate the State House? Was there,
1.2 billion.
Was the State House raining? Was it like pouring?
Okay, let's allow Eric to...
Once we go to State House and raining, we might lose the plot of the discussion. The way Zach praises the former regime, you might imagine we were being led by angels.
He was part of it.
And he knows there were no angels that were leading this country. This strike that we are seeing now was a result of a CBA signed by the previous regime in 2017. That is after the doctors had gone on strike for 3 months. Those things you're hearing that the president was calling them as a father, you know, you're better off with someone who keeps quiet than someone who calls you as a father to manage you and massage you for 3 months with nothing to show for it. The doctors have gone on strike over 19 issues in the CBA they signed in 2017. So when we speak about governance and about good governments, it must not be lost on us where the trouble is.
My question is about the assertion that we need to live within our means.
And I'm getting there. Now, in terms of us living within our means, and in terms of the CBA, you know, that was being signed, because part of it is actually monetary. I have always asked myself a question, and it's good the president is saying we actually need to have a discussion. I have always asked, when I was growing up, one of the best careers to have was actually being a doctor. You are either a doctor, an engineer, or a pilot.
Or a lawyer.
Or a lawyer. Luckily for the engineers, they went and started their own engineering something. You know, they have had a preserve of themselves. And because they practice mostly in the private sector, you know, it's still a lucrative career. But unfortunately for doctors is that they still have to serve in the public service. Now, if you look at the wage bill of county governments, a majority of the wage bill actually goes to the health sector. That is where the majority of the wage bill goes, leave alone where the governor comes with all the people he was campaigning for. But majority of the wage bill goes towards. And unfortunately, they are not even enough. That's the most unfortunate bit. Even when the wages form part of, you know, the budget, unfortunately, the doctors, the clinicians, they are never enough. And the question we need to ask ourselves is this: as a government, and not just this government, even historically, what priorities do we have, especially when the budget policy statement, like right now, is ongoing? What are our priorities as a country? And I agree with the president, we need to have that discussion. And what is this discussion? Zach has mentioned here that when he was CAS, they cut their salary for 3 months. And part of the question we need to ask ourselves as a country is, in terms of SRC, number one, what is actually their role? Number two, in what sectors as a country do we prioritize so that when we spend resources, we actually spend resources knowing that there is productivity at the end? When you look at the wage bill incurred by, say, the legislative arm of government, was it better off if we channeled that money to, say, judiciary? Or was it better off if that money was channeled to the executive arm of government and used for certain purposes? We had a report the other day on primary schools now. Almost all parents are running away from public primary schools. And it's a discussion, I agree with the president fully, that it is true, we not only need to live within our means, but we need to reprioritize on how the government spends money and how we deploy money and into which sectors that money goes, because it's an important discussion. Okay,
but it's the genuineness of that assertion that we need to live within our means, because you don't just communicate through words, it's also through action. The president, sometime last year, the head of public service through a circular had actually cut down foreign travel, and even the size of the entourage for the president and any other government officer traveling outside this country. But we are seeing a reversal of that people are back to their normal ways, their usual ways, and one may wonder when the president says one thing on this hand and what we are seeing, and it's not just the president's travel, everyone else. Right now, that circular is as good as...
it's trash.
Yes, okay, I didn't want to use that.
I think even the president is misusing the word we. Like he kept on saying, he says we need to do this.
But this country is ours, Lucy.
Yeah, it is, but he's misusing it. Because
but we is also, we are part of we.
He is misusing because we are not really included.
Because the question is, are we as a country having... Yes. And I know the president has called for a conference on the 15th to 17th of this month to discuss the wage bill, which is part of this whole discussion. If a country has decided to pursue austerity, are we having a proper discussion about this? Probably Kenyans don't really understand issues of austerity.
So
as you make your final comments about in 2 minutes' time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, the word we is being misused because I don't think that there's any time, what we have seen so far, that the president takes in what the people are saying. If he felt like we are included in giving our opinions, we will not be discussing about the affordable housing now. If he was serious on that, on the we as a country, we will not be having any time, even in parliament, they discussed, we will not have had even the CAS thing. Because he knew if it was illegal the way he says, and the way it was said, why would he have had it? My brother here says you kept on talking about the previous government. The signing of the CBA in 2017, President Ruto was part and parcel of the government.
Really?
So, of course he was.
Really?
Was he not?
Really?
Right now we are saying what Gachagua is doing. Yes, he was.
No, Eric has the right to deny, because the people he's defending are perfect deniers.
By the way, allow me to finish.
You have about 60 seconds.
Yes, I have 60 seconds. Maybe I'm not defending anyone. I'm defending the right of Kenyans. So when that CBA, including you, when the CBA was signed, it was 2017, Ruto was the president.
Deputy president.
Deputy president, and he was part of the government, fully there. And all the things they keep on referring...
Because that was the first term.
Yes.
Actually,
it was, yes.
No, it was not.
2017?
2017 was the end of...
That's when we had the election.
It was the end.
Yes, but he was part of it, and also he came 2022, he was part of it.
This man has learned from the best.
Yeah, so there's nothing...
They seem to be eating into your 60
imagine
seconds.
they have eaten my time. So what they are saying about the president saying that we live within our means, these things should go back also to the counties. Our county governments, actually, they are the worst. because the real governments right now, they are within the counties. Especially the health sector we are talking about is within the counties. In the counties, there is also the question of the NHIF. I've worked in the counties. And the counties, you are deducted automatically the NHIF. There's no debate there. When your pay slip comes, it is not there. But when you go to the hospital, you are told your money has not been remitted. Where did that money go? The governor is aware. I'm sure the national government is aware. I'm sure the Senate is aware. They know. And a lot of people down there at the counties, they are really suffering, even the employees. Even before this increase of taxes come, they have already been suffering. Nakumincha knows that very well if she's aware of what is going around in our sector. That one is happening. So why make these commoners, these workers, even at the counties, even to a private hospital, they cannot even go.
Okay.
If worst came to the worst and they have to go to a hospital, they cannot even
Parting
afford.
shot?
So parting shot, it is let President Ruto be genuine what he's saying. When he says we live within our means, let him lead the way.
Okay.
And let us see it.
Okay.
Yes.
And as you make your final thoughts, Bwana Kiruthia, also a wage bill consuming 47% of the collectible revenue is a concern.
It is.
Yeah, as Kenyans, probably we should take heed and have this conversation on living within our means.
The person who should do this is called Public Service Commission, assisted by SRC, who is in charge of the element that controls Public Service Commission is the president. If majority of this wage bill is in the national government, as we talk about counties, because there's another problem there, the one he can enforce quickly is in the national government. Yet, people are being employed and contracts renewed and contracts created and money assigned. So when the president speaks about one matter and contradicted the next morning with his actions, Kenyans are really lost. And I think I'll make my submission of conclusion by saying, I think it should be psychiatrists and psychologists in Kenya should consider prescribing the health of our mind predicated upon not believing what the president says. Because president's words are causing mental
there's a serious
disorder.
trust deficit.
It is there. And if you come to where at least I am born, people are saying in Mount Kenya, tulidanganywa. Tulidanganywa. In English, that would say, we were lied to. We were lied to. You do not ask them by who. Because they know. You know, they're trying to not mention the name. But tulidanganywa would mean we were lied to. The president has a series of contradictions, has a series of biblical allusions that actually do not even exist. Because I think in his 30 years career of politics, I think he no longer differentiates between illusions and truth. I think he no longer cares about what is honest and what is sincere. Because if he was sincere, he would say, from today, wage bill begins with me. State House budgets, cut. President's Office of the President budget, cut, and reduce unnecessary spending. I'm not saying the president should not go out, but I am saying Kibaki went out of the country 2 times, from 2008 to 2012 when he exited power in 2013. 2 times. I'm not saying that the president should do that. At least Ruto is younger than Kibaki. Maybe Kibaki had problems of traveling. But even as he travel, how he travel, when he travel, also matters, because Kenya ya saa hizi sio Kenya ya siku hizo.
Okay.
Wakati huu Wakenya wanaona sana, wanaangalia maneno na wamesoma. Okay. Maybe Kibaki's time he would pass with people who haven't gone to school. Okay. I ask the presidency to either step up by speaking the truth and only the truth to Kenyans, or ask Kenyans not to believe anything they say and anything they hear from their president.
I agree, Fred, that where he comes from, I would believe that is where I come from. That is Mount Kenya. I agree with him that we were lied to. I agree with him that we were betrayed. What I do not agree is who the betrayer and the liar is. that is the point of divergence. And I'll leave it at that. And lastly, is to say that it is true, we need to live within our means. You might be aware that government now, on the first charge on the consolidated fund is pensions. You might be aware that we've defaulted also on that. So the reality is, Fred, there is no money. That's the reality as we see it.
Okay.
And therefore, we must live within our means. I concur and agree fully with the president.
Do you think that conference will be consequential?
Let me just say that it will be consequential, but not to the extent within which Kenyans expect it to be. You know, this austerity song has been sung since the former president was a finance minister. You remember when government went on buying Passats so that we could save money from guzzlers. But after a few months, he himself as the finance minister then acquired the V8. So I think the austerity song is a tired song. I think the lyrics are now boring. I think it's more of a dirge than an entertainment song.
It's not something we can engage in?
For purposes of catharsis, perhaps.
So you're saying the president is scoring a dirge on 17? He's scoring a barrier song? I agree with him. The president can only summon dirges.
Thank you, Eric Mungai, a political analyst, Lucy Mori, a political analyst as well, and Zaki Nothi, a former Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Education. Our panelists this morning on State of the Nation. Thank you so much for your time this morning and just for being here at TV47. Now, President William Ruto's recent remarks regarding living within our means as a nation, particularly in the context of the ongoing healthcare crisis and the demands of striking doctors, have definitely sparked much-needed debate. It is encouraging to see the president finally addressing this critical issue, albeit amidst a prolonged standoff. Now, Ruto's call for doctors to consider the government's offer on intern deployment while emphasizing the nation's financial constraints is a valid point. Indeed, in times of economic hardship, prudence and fiscal responsibility are paramount. However, it raises questions about the government's own spending practices. While advocating for austerity measures, recent reports of extravagant expenditures by government entities, such as the exorbitant cost of umbrellas and luxury items, undermine the credibility of such calls. It is essential for the government to lead by example and demonstrate a genuine commitment to living within its means before expecting citizens to do the same. Is this call genuine when discussions persist about hiring of over 50 chief administrative secretaries, which are necessary? Is it justifiable to demand belt tightening from Kenyans while government officials engage in unnecessary foreign travels with bloated entourages, often including their relatives? Is it right to expect doctors to make concessions while cabinet secretaries splurge millions in public? Proposed budget cuts and discussions on addressing the government's bloated wage bill are steps in the right direction. However, these measures must be part of a comprehensive and inclusive approach involving all stakeholders.